This video is going to look at helping to define instructional alignment. In other words, the relationship between a standard, developing a standards-based lesson or curriculum, and developing a learning target to align that instruction. So first, let's look at that tier of measurement. The tier of instructional alignment really has to do with a combination of standards, standards-based, and the learning target. The first thing that you start with is the standard, that concise written description of what is a student expected to know and do at a specific stage. 6th grade language arts, 5th grade science. These are usually of multiple levels. There's national level ones such as Common Core state standards or national standards developed by organizations in literacy, organizations in mathematics, organizations in science, etc. The state that you teach in may also have their own, as you know, and of course local level you may have those that are defined by your specific district. But these actually are to define the focus of your instruction. One of the biggest mistakes teachers make is that they have great activities that they design, however they're not really aligned to a standard that student is supposed to show mastery of in the context of their learning. And so that's a key piece that's sometimes missed in curriculum development and assessment development as well. Therefore, once you have the standards, you're developing a standards-based curriculum where you develop that instruction, the assessment, the grading, the academic reporting. All of those things are based on the mastery of knowledge of that particular standard. Key thing to remember in alignment is that when you design activities, those activities should be in alignment with that standard. In other words, you can clearly see that when we're doing this, we're meeting this particular standard. They're showing that the students master that particular standard. When you design that curriculum, the thing that you do is you come up with what's called a learning target. A learning target says, let's take this big standard, because many times you can't meet one standard in only one lesson. You may be meeting a portion of that standard in multiple lessons throughout the course of your academic year. That learning target is that statement that says, for this particular lesson, this is what we're going to focus on. And that defines how that standard is going to be applied to that specific lesson. The format for these learning targets, or the easiest way to develop them, is using a format called the ABCD format. And we'll talk about how that process works. First thing is, when you develop that learning target, you're looking at what level of thinking or processing am I going to require of the students in this activity. The key thing you want to make sure is that somewhere in the context of your unit or lesson, you are going to assess and evaluate students on projects that are at synthesis evaluation level, as well as process projects that may be at this knowledge and comprehension level. All good units have combinations of all of these together. So this chart, which is also available on the UART references that I provided in your lesson, shows some common ways of doing this. You find a verb that helps describe what type of activity they're doing. For example, if you're wanting the students to design something new, you're thinking, okay, that is a synthesis level activity. If you're wanting them to outline a chapter or a reading, that is something that's at the knowledge level. Doesn't require a high degree of processing. So you want to make sure that you have multiple levels when you design this. So you choose that Bloom's verb and you build a one-sentence statement, and that becomes a learning target. There are 4 components, as what I talked about earlier, the A, B, C, D. Audience has to do with who is the lesson for. 3rd grade student, 5th grade student, 8th grade student, college freshman, whatever the specific audience, graduate students. Behavior is, what are the parts? Things like if you were doing something with a science or health lesson, describe the parts of the heart. That's the behavior. What are you asking students to do? The condition is, under what context are they doing that behavior? Like, for example, if we use the parts of the heart example, they're completing a jigsaw of the heart activity. And so they're completing a jigsaw they're describing the parts of the heart by completing a jigsaw activity. The degree is, what level of mastery are you looking for? We have 2 different ones. The first one being competency. In other words, this is a formative assessment. We're looking at, can students do this with competency, or is it good enough? Or are we really doing a formal assessment of this, which is we're looking for a degree of proficiency? In other words, can they perform at the 80% level on an exam or on a scoring guide or rubric for that lesson? So the key thing in your degree statement is knowing where is that context in the lesson. So let's look at an example of these. A learning target, the easiest way to put one together is with this blank sentence format. The blank will blank by blank with blank. And inside each of those blanks goes those components, the A, B, C, and D. So if we look at, for example, a learning target, the third grade student will design a picture collage by searching for pictures which represent characters in a story with competency. To break that down into its components, we see that the third grade student is our audience. What are we asking them to do? There's our bloobs verb, design, here. But our behavior is we're asking them to design a picture collage. How are we, under what conditions? By searching for pictures which represent characters in a story. And what degree of mastery are we looking for? With competency at this level. We're not doing a formal assessment. We're saying, are they able to complete this activity successfully? So when you put together your projects and things that you're doing for this particular lesson, you're going to utilize these concepts in that process.